What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode 334. Today, we're going to talk about a rule for Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, you could take this rule elsewhere. I think it kind of applies to just about anything, but you'll clearly see its ability to apply to your Jiu-Jitsu coming up. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode and get something from it. Big thanks to our sponsors, Grapple Science. You guys, Grapple Science is a new one of our sponsors. They make a product called Cognition, and the big focus on it is helping you have more focus and energy without any stimulants. And so they sent us each a pack, like a 1 month supply of it, and I used it off and on over the course of about a month and a half. Also gave some to my wife, and I liked it. I'm not going to say it's like I don't take it and like want to like break through a wall or something. It's not like we were talking about it this morning in the gym when all the pre-workout stuff came out back in like the day. It's like, dude, some of that stuff had some crazy ingredients in it, and you would take it and you felt like I've never done meth, but from people who've explained their experiences with meth, that's essentially what I felt like I was on. I remember taking like a pre-workout supplement one time, and then like teaching like little kids jiu-jitsu, like teaching like a 7-year-old to like 10-year-old, 12-year-old class. And I'm just running around like the ultimate warrior, like, let's go guys.
Right.
And the kids loved it. It was a great experience for them. But I was just running around, doing cartwheels and sweating profusely. So again, it's not that. And I'm not a big stimulants guy. As I'm getting older, I'm a little bit more sensitive to caffeine. I
Yeah.
also detox off caffeine once a year. So I keep my receptors sharp, and I don't really like a lot of stimulants. So I was taking it, and what I did notice is that it did help me with a sustained level of focus throughout the day. So for me, like, I do my jiu-jitsu training in the morning, and then I have like either a lift or something in the evening. And so I was taking it, and I noticed that I had a little bit more, I guess you would say, a little bit more longevity with my focus, especially for my creative work that I do in the middle of the day, whether that's writing the emails, planning out videos, whatever it might be. And so I enjoyed it. And my wife also likes it. She's like, basically coming down here and stealing the little packets from me. And so if you guys want to try it, it's a good supplement. Again, we vetted it. Anecdotally, I like it. So you can try it for yourself and see what you think. If you guys want to check them out, their website is grapplescience.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. CHEWJITSU20. It was created by two black belts who are in their 50s. They're like us. I think one's almost 50, the other one's in their 50s. So just like us, older black belts that are out there training and getting after it. And then they wanted to create something that would help focus, but at the same time, not be another stimulant thing, which isn't really healthy for you. So check it out at grapplescience.com. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. Guys, if you have not checked out some of their new supplements, they've got a lot of different things out there. One of the supplements that they have in their CBD line is their CBN supplement. So it's not actually CBD, it's CBN, which is supposed to be useful to help you sleep. So again, there's a lot of like things you can and cannot say about it. But overall, I like the supplement. I've been using it. My wife's used it. Again, she's kind of my litmus test sometimes, because she'll jokingly tell me that like if I want a supplement to do something, then it will do it. She's like, those people that like, she's like, those people that respond to the placebo. She's like, you're that guy. If you think it's going to do something, it will do it. And I think she's right. So sometimes she's really useful for me, where like I can get like a sort of an opinion who's not quite as nutty as I am, and she can give me a little bit more level-headed approach sometimes to the sort of opinion to the supplement, and she seems to like it. Seems to help her get a bit more sleep at night. And the supplement, if you're interested, is called Stay Asleep. So if you want to give that one a try, check it out at charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order. And again, anything to help with your rest is going to help your recovery. And when it comes to improvement, which we'll be talking about later, your improvement, your skill development, all that stuff, it basically stays in line with your recovery. So if you're not able to recover, you're not going to improve. You're not going to get stronger, bigger, more muscular. Your jiu-jitsu is not going to get better. So anything that you can do to increase your recovery is worth a try. So check it out at charlottesweb.com. Also, thanks to Roll BJJ.com, Epic Roll Jiu-Jitsu. Again, they make the rash guards that I like to wear, the shorts that I like to wear. Pretty much exclusively wear the Jiu-Jitsu branded Epic Rolls stuff that I have now. I don't think I wear anything else. It's my favorite stuff. It's comfortable. It fits great. And I got some really cool designs coming up. Be on the lookout for that. I'm probably going to launch those sometime in November. Just a heads up to you guys. So it'll be a lot of fun. It's got some really cool designs. I'm really stoked about them. But In the meantime, if you ever want to check out any of their stuff, whether you're looking for t-shirts, gis, rash guards, shorts, merchandise, whatever, epicrollbjj.com is the website, and the promo code for 20% off the order is Chewjitsu, CHEWJITSU 20. If you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by visiting our Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you do so, you'll get an inexpensive membership option there. You can check through and see which one works best for you. It supports the podcast. And then from there on, you then have the option to get and dig into the content library that we've produced for you over the last, I mean, it's getting close to half a decade. So again, and that'll go into, it's crazy, right? We've been around for a while. But again, it'll go in there.
Yeah.
You have everything from episodes with our previous guests that are not released anywhere. Eugene has some warm-up routines specifically for jiu-jitsu, which are really useful. We're actually, me and Eugene are working on a book and a course going into some of these stretches, because I've been using them a bunch and in the warm-up classes and things like that. And I've noticed a huge difference in the way my hips and my knees feel. And even last night we had a guy visiting who was like, oh man, he goes, I've never done those types of movements before. He said, my hips were cramping up and stuff like that. But afterwards, he's like, I felt really good. And we only did like a very short little bout of it. And so I had Eugene like simplify the process and like show some of the campers at my jiu-jitsu camps. Those warm-up routine videos are in the library at the Patreon, and we'll be producing something very special coming up in the near future. But again, if you guys want to support the podcast and get access to some stuff and some other perks, you can look at all the details at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Also, guys, I just released a new version of my Focus Jiu-Jitsu ebook. The first one that I did years ago was pretty good, but it was too focused on like theoretical stuff that was mostly usable for coaches. Still useful. But what I did was I rewrote it, and I wrote it with the focus of, if you're someone in the gym that does not have any control of your training and the only thing that you have available to you is like open rolling and open mats, what could you do to improve? What could you do to create more progress in your jiu-jitsu? What could you do to create more focus? I personally think that a lot of times what people lack in jiu-jitsu is focus. And if you get focus going, you can literally eliminate the lack of motivation. You can eliminate the sticky points in your game. You can eliminate basically getting on the mat and feeling lost, right? Just by simply finding something to focus on. And so the ebook is mainly, I mean, there's more to it, but it's about 12 different strategies that you can implement to a daily roll session to get a lot more skill development out of your training and to get more from the training. And again, I think that's really important for us, especially as we get older and our training volume has to drop. We have to make sure we get the most from our training because we don't have as much to work with. But again, if you guys want to get that ebook and also get my daily email, you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN, and you can get all that stuff for free. So guys, with that said, let's jump into this idea. Recently, I was reading an email newsletter that I'm subscribed to. And, the guy shares some different ideas and things like that. And one of the things that he shared the other day was a little passage, I guess from one of his books or something that I read. And I agree with it to a degree, and I disagree with it to a degree. So the quote, I'll read it to you, basically says, the path to differentiated results looks like madness to the masses. As the adage goes, if you do what everyone else does, you'll get the same results everyone else gets. Extraordinary success requires misunderstood choices. So there's parts of that I really agree with, such as if you do what everyone else does, you'll get the same results everyone else gets. But where I disagree with him, man, is that success requires misunderstood choices. And that the path to differentiated success results looks like madness to the masses. So I'll give you some ideas, and then we can chew on this. We'll break this down into chunks. So when I think, you can think about this in a lot of different ways, but I think about the way that a lot of people approach problems and solutions to like these days, right? And what I see is that a lot of times the people that are the most successful in their field, jiu-jitsu, business, diet, exercise, whatever it is, the path that they took was for the most part filled with unremarkable activities. And I think that a lot of times what happens today is that people are looking for some remarkable activity, solution, supplement, whatever it might be, to be like the holy grail, the solving of their problem, right? So let's
Mhm.
take diet as an example. For the most part, for most of us, I mean, if you have like a professional chef that works for you or whatever, or if you have the desire to want to count all the macros and do all that stuff yourself, that's fine. But for most of us, when it comes to dieting, it means eating the same foods over and over again, right? Basically, getting your macros dialed in and then eating the same foods over and over and over again, because then you can know whether or not you're eating what you need to be eating, and your weight drops or goes up depending on what your goals are. It's very simple. It's a very simple process, been proven over and over and over again. And the people that really keep their physique in check, that's what they do. But people instead look for these crazy solutions to solve their problems with diet, right? They'll try every different diet, under the sun, because it promises to be the next saving grace. They'll take the next supplement pill or whatever it is because, hey, this is what this is what I need to use. But again, it's, for most people, the actual road to that's pretty unremarkable. And then I'll say one more part about jiu-jitsu, and then I'll let you sort of chime in. With jiu-jitsu, a lot of times you see this on the internet too, where everybody's trying to differentiate themselves. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to create some new thing. And so what do? Like, they try to create this new thing that everybody needs to be doing. And this is the one and only way that you need to be doing things. But when you look at what most people did to become really, really good at jiu-jitsu, it's filled with a lot of unremarkable rolling sessions, unremarkable drilling sessions, nothing crazy, unremarkable study sessions, right? But it's all these unremarkable activities that you engage in for a long period of consistency, over a long period of time, that then when you have those little bits of those breakthroughs and those big remarkable moments that might pop up at different times, it's only because of that. And so when you look around at what most people do, they aren't willing to engage in the unremarkable activities. And so where I agree with this idea is that most people don't engage in the unremarkable stuff with long-term consistency. And so there's your ticket, right? There's your differentiated results. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's madness to the masses, because most of us know what we need to do, but then we still don't do it. So I'll stop there for a second before I cover all
Yeah.
this stuff.
So you kind of mentioned unremarkable, and let's maybe dive into a little bit of what that is. Why are these things? And so when you say unremarkable, do you mean like not memorable, not unique, maybe nothing about these maybe training sessions or these techniques or these movements, whatever it is, they don't stand out. Nothing about it's like new or novel in nature.
So think about the word remarkable, right? To say something is remarkable means it's worth remarking upon. To basically say it's worth talking about, right? If someone has a remarkable performance, it means it's worth remarking about. It's worth talking about. So to say something is unremarkable just means it's not really worth talking about, right? And if you
Mhm.
think about like the bulk of your training sessions, the bulk of your roles, do you remember them?
No.
No, like they just happen, and like it just sort of, they become like a big haze of just general time periods, right? You don't remember anything about them.
Yeah.
Now, every now and then you have these big breakthroughs, or you hit this new technique, or you're like, man, I remember the first time hit this choke on someone, or you have a great performance at a competition, whatever it is, and then it's worth remarking upon. But those are so few and far between. And the space is made up with these big giant swaths of training sessions that, unless you record them, you will never remember for the rest of your life. They're just not worth talking about. And that's,
Mhm.
it's like there's no, people get all excited and they watch like a highlight video or some motivational video, and they've got the narrator and the music and stuff like that. Your life there is no narrator in the background, like with this deep, sultry voice. I mean, maybe if you're that's your inner dialogue, possibly. There's no music constantly playing and no motivational speech going on. It's just you doing a lot of really boring stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not necessarily the worst thing. It's just like, that's the path, right? Doesn't mean it's the worst thing. But I think, again, people are always looking for some novel idea because they've been told that, hey, it's not your fault. It's because you didn't know about this, and I think they get led
Yeah.
astray by this chase of novelty. So, going back to that quote, it says, extraordinary success requires misunderstood choices, or the path to differentiated results looks like madness to the masses. Like, you got to do something really crazy to be successful. It's like, no, you actually got to do stuff. Maybe it is crazy to some, because I mean, if you really compare what most people do, look at our society. You got people that can't stop looking at their phones. You
Yeah.
have people that don't eat well. They just eat whatever's in front of them. They don't even give two craps about what they put in the food in their body, their families. So like, yeah, they might look at you crazy. I mean, and maybe that's a possibility. They might look at you crazy because you
Because you're
decide to
doing,
put your phone away or not
yeah.
use it all the time, or you decide to be a health nut and really dial into being focused on the food that you put into your body. But it's those simple things that really move the needle in a big way for people.
I think people see unremarkable things as boring or maybe even unimportant. But what we're trying to share here is that those are actually some of the most important things to do. The unremarkable things are what build that foundation. They're the most essential pieces of the puzzle, essentially, to get you, to do those remarkable things, to achieve, a world title, or buying a house, or buying this, or doing whatever, like accomplishing those goals. You have to have the unremarkable things. So what do you think, Chewy? I've kind of thinking in my head as well, like, how do you find joy or enjoyment even in the unremarkable? The grinding, like the consistent training, the drilling, which we have found those are tried and true approaches to getting good, to winning titles, to being good at something. How do you find joy in those things?
I mean, it's different for everybody, right? So you have to find your own approach. Um, a couple things, and I'll ask you a question in just a second. There was a quote from like Charlie Munger that basically, the guy that was like Warren Buffett's buddy,
Okay.
the big hedge fund millionaire guy or whatever, so, big investment guy. And he was saying that, he's like, just in his experience, he's never achieved anything, like been successful at anything he wasn't enthusiastic about.
Mm,
And so I think that sometimes, like, when people, I've had questions from people like, oh man, I just, it's really tough to get up and go train or da da da. I'm like, maybe you should do
right.
something else. Like, it
True.
shouldn't be that hard if you actually enjoy what you're doing, right? Because if you know that, like, if you feel like you're making progress and you're doing what you need to do, then like it shouldn't be that difficult. I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult all the time, but it's like, it shouldn't be something you hate doing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think if you can like look at what you're doing and extract some level of just enjoyment out of every thing every little situation that you're doing, like as far as the work goes, um, it's really not that hard, right? So again, like when you go train, like, as an example, those training sessions, there's so much beautiful stuff going on in the gym. I mean, first off, if you just think about the fact that you're lucky enough to go train, you don't live in some war-torn country, you are healthy enough, you're not sitting in a cancer ward getting ready to die, like you can train, like thank your lucky stars, right? Your body is able and healthy enough to do this. How lucky are you, right? You have to put it in perspective. But also too, I
100%.
always have this mindset of sort of drops in the bucket. I've shared this idea before, but basically I think about everything that I do as far as like those little grindy sessions. It's all drops in the bucket, so like when I go to the gym, good day, bad day, doesn't matter. It's a drop in the bucket. Go to a competition, win, lose, drop in the bucket. With stuff like outside of the gym, like we'll say, like with the business, some of the work that I do, man, it's like sometimes I feel like I'm not making any headway, but I know I'm doing the work that I need to do. So it's a drop in the bucket. You can think about, you just bought a house, and obviously it's a very nice home and everything else. It took a long period of time of being
Yeah.
financially intelligent with your money and things like that, right? Drops in the
Mhm.
bucket, you know?
Yeah.
And so for me, the way that I look at things is, if I find an activity that I know is going to contribute to what I'm trying to do, dieting, lifting, jujitsu, whatever it is, then what I think about is, no matter the outcome of that particular session, that particular little engagement, I just know that it's leading me to where I need to go, because it's like a drop in the bucket, where if you think about it, if you put like a bucket under a leak, right, to
Yep.
catch it, one drop's not worth much, right? It's very insignificant. It's like if you did one day of dieting it means absolutely nothing.
Right.
But like the bucket, if you leave that bucket and it keeps collecting and eventually those drops collect, eventually that damn thing's overflowing and it's significant, right? You now have a significant amount of water sitting in this bucket. Well, likewise, it's like that's how everything kind of works, with your training and everything else. It's like it collects and these unremarkable, insignificant little drops collect. And then eventually, somewhere down the road, you have this significant, this remarkable experience, right? That can happen. And I think that a lot of times people have a level, and we're all guilty of this in some fashion. We have this impatience to us. We want it now, or we want it to be easier, or whatever. And again, for me, I just think about the fact that if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm putting those drops in the bucket. I've had this happen too many times now to where like I just know how this works. I put my drops in the bucket. I just keep doing it. Good things happen down the road. I just have to be patient and just do the work, put the drops in the bucket.
Yeah, you said a couple of really important things, and as you were saying it, I was in my head. I'm like, he's gonna say this word, and it was perspective. You had a perspective of like, this is important for me to do because I have this goal or this thing I want to accomplish. Your perspective wasn't that this was useless, unmeaningful stuff. You knew that these training sessions are extremely important to accomplish the things you want to accomplish.
Right.
And you find joy in those things. You find like there's something that feels good about really working hard in those training. We talk about those training sessions, getting through a tough training session afterwards. You're just like relaxing. You're just laying around on the mats and like you can relax. Your body kind of releases a little bit. You don't have that tension of training and you're kind of just hanging out with your buddies. And that leads to my next point. That's just the environment that you set, right? If you have an environment that's very conducive to supporting each other, pushing each other, being somewhere you want to be, even if it's uncomfortable at times, training sometimes can be uncomfortable. It can stress you physically, mentally, emotionally. Like I said, good days, bad days on the mats. But if it's an environment that's conducive to that hard work and you see everybody else doing it and the people that you respect and that you enjoy being around are also a part of this thing, it's just like a big wave, and it's just, you kind of get swept up in it and you're able to do it. And I think that's a really important thing. And that's an important thing of like finding, if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu, I think one of the most important things is finding the culture and the environment that's conducive to you. It's not going to be the same to every person, but to you that fits you. Like we've had people come to the gym and stay. We have people come to the gym and leave and go somewhere else. And I never understood why they left, because for me, I was like, I knew this was my home as soon as I got there. But it just not the right situation for everybody. However, if you find whatever that is, you find that gym and that environment that works for you, that's going to be one of the things that's just going to really help you along the way.
Yeah, and going to you for a second, right? Like, because to me, this lesson, I've just experienced this, and I'm not trying to be one of those guys, because again, it's not like I've figured everything out. I figured a few things out, and anything that I've been successful at has sort of like this process has preceded itself, right? Like,
Dude,
this
you
is
got
how
to
I
quit
got there.
saying stuff because I'm like writing it down. As soon as I'm writing down process as you're saying process.
Yeah, we're
Talking.
on the same. We're
We've
on the
been
same
talking too many
wavelength.
times, man. I'm telling you, I'm
But
writing it down as you're like right before you say it. Anyway.
But so think about like your stuff with physical therapy, right? Like you have the ability now, right? Where someone can walk into it. I've seen you do it. Like, and you've done it to me numerous times. They can walk in and they can say, "Hey, this hurts." And like you can like do some different things. You can look at them and you'll instantly have a pretty accurate read as to what's going on with that person. And sometimes you're able to fix that with basically simple exercises and stretches, as has been the case with me several times, right? That's a powerful ability. Right. Literally, you can go in there, you can say, like, think about that. Like, you can take someone's body and you can look at them and something can be bothering them and you can just help them fix it by giving them some different prescriptions. And if they follow the prescription, they'll fix themselves. It's really incredible. Now, think about that. How did that happen? You now, after years and years and years of doing this stuff, have the ability to tweak it and make everything your own. But so much of that was built on going to class, studying, reading books, practicing on patients, having clinical work, doing reps and reps and reps with your patients. I mean, And most of it to most people would be really unremarkable. But then when you think about the skill that you have now and your abilities, it's very remarkable. I mean, it's incredible to be able to do that with someone where you can assess their body and be like, oh, here's what's messed up with you and here's how to fix it. That's a great ability. How did you get there? You got there by lots of relatively unremarkable actions. Not there, and when we say unremarkable, it doesn't mean they're not meaningful. Meaningful because they are very meaningful. Just like every day you spend with your family is a meaningful day, even though you won't remember half of them because it's just like it's just an everyday thing. But it's all unremarkable. We don't think about it. We don't talk about it. It's not a highlight video reel. It's not an inspirational, motivational, whatever. But there's your path, right? And that's
Yeah.
how you got this remarkable skill that you have.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I mean, it's always sometimes we all have imposter syndrome in some ways. Like I've been talking about that like with my wife sometimes, like you know what you're doing and but just sometimes it's like you I don't know, like believing in what you do and
Yeah,
like
yeah, I
just
got you.
it's just really it's good to hear that. Um but I think I mean, I gave a shit. I really cared about what I was doing. I was really like, I didn't care about sitting through some of these classes and like doing, I was like, let me get my hands on people and move them around and like figure out what they're doing and talk to them. And like, um, yeah, I just think I gave a shit. I really
Yeah,
cared about what I was doing and I didn't have to be forced to do it. Like I worked so hard to get into school and then I found like, kind of found jujitsu while I was in physical therapy school. And so those things were always together in some way. Like they're almost like the opposites of each other. One's like, how do I fix you? One's how do I break you? Right. And we try to
uh,
figure it out. And I
yeah,
just they're really much and you can learn so much from one on how to do the other. You almost like reverse engineer them. Like,
sure.
well, if this was what caused your injury, how can we come back and like figure out how to re rehab it and how to decrease the risk of it happening. And then if you're in the situation, what kind of things you need to work on to keep your body more together? Again, it's not a perfect science or a perfect art. I think physical therapy, there's so much creativity that goes into it, but a lot of it's built on the essentials, the basics, and just doing the kind of monotonous
Mhm.
learning these simple not I wouldn't say they're simple, but I think they're like tried and true methods. Like, okay, if you've got a rotator cuff tear, well, I'm not going to make you do these crazy movements. We're going to start with the
Yeah.
basics and see if can you do the basics? Okay. Can you do a basic scissor sweep? Right. Well,
Uh-huh.
then we're going to go to some of these crazy positions and
Then we
some of
can
these
move up the
submissions.
chain.
Exactly. But you have to be able to do the basic stuff. But going back to it, nobody had to put my feet to the fire for me to do physical therapy. And then I found these two things I really liked and they aligned in some way together, physical therapy and jujitsu, that I was interested in both. And then there was a need, right? Like there's people getting injured. The whole point, not
Mhm.
the whole point, but a lot of jujitsu is putting people in positions where their joints don't move that way.
Mhm.
Or, not with everything. I mean, you have strangles and stuff like that, but a
No,
lot of
yeah,
it
no, I'm
is
following you,
that
right? Because 'Cause you're
capacity.
trying to do stuff to the joints, yeah.
I mean, the joint moves this way. I'm going to move it in the opposite direction.
Uh-huh.
So that even helped me like figure out how submissions work and how to hit submissions or how to even like adjust them to make them work, even just knowing the anatomy of the body. I think that's good for jujitsu people anyways, to study anatomy. I think it's so important to know which muscles work how and when. And that helps you understand jujitsu, I think.
Yeah. Well, and so you even think right there, going back to the idea of like enthusiasm, right? Um, even I remember reading Emerson from like, his essays in like the 1860s or whatever, him
Yeah.
talking about the idea of, enthusiasm and how important it is, right? Because everybody's looking for this motivation, the spark or whatever. And it's like you should be able to find activities that you can get into that you enjoy. I'm not saying that you're not going to enjoy everything, and there's times where it's going to be difficult, but difficult's not bad. Difficult is what it is. But you had enthusiasm for it, and then again, you were doing a lot of monotonous, relatively boring or fundamental stuff, and that's what now led you to having the ability to like do your own creative versions of all the stuff that you've
Mhm.
done. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, right? And so kind of going back to the idea of the podcast today, I think that a lot of times people chase these novel, brand new, never before seen, whatever it is, ideas. And it's not to say that they're not all wrong, right? But in a lot of cases, the road to like the person you want to be, or the road to like getting the stuff that you want, it's generally already been laid out. People have done it plenty of times, and it's usually built upon a big, giant, heaping pile of really unremarkable, somewhat boring, not very exciting activities and behaviors.
Mhm.
That's it, right?
Yep. I do think I have as I've kind of studied certain things, I've realized that motivation is very fickle. Like, I think motivation is, I think it's a spark, and you can use it, but like it doesn't last. People always ask, like, well, how do I get motivated? Well, like, you can't, it's not about motivation. Like, I think motivation, like, you have sparks of it and then it's gone. What do you do after it's gone? Like, can you keep up doing that thing? Like, what's beside, like, people get into jiu-jitsu, you call them shooting stars, right? They're motivated, they learn things, it's very exciting, new, flashy. And then what? Like, that's no longer new and flashy anymore. Then it's just like, I've been training for months and months, and I'm getting slowly better, and it's not exciting anymore. Like, you know what I mean? It's still enjoyable, but it's not like, like, remember hitting your first submission? Like, holy shit, it worked. Like, so motivation for me is one of those tricky words and tricky things that I just don't put a lot of stock into it anymore.
Yeah, I look at the word motivation a little differently. I don't use it differently because everybody uses it kind of that way. So I'm not going to do it, but I don't use it that way that much because most people wouldn't follow me. But the way that I look at it is there's motivation and there's inspiration. When you look at the etymology of the two words, right? Like motivation comes from the Latin word to move, right?
Mhm.
ins- Inspiration is more of like comes from sort of a word to be like divinely, like being having breath breathe into you, right? Like being
Mhm.
filled
Inspire.
with
Yeah.
and it has like sort of a divine religious sort of connotation. So to me, that spark that we talk about, that's inspiration. You're inspired to do something. You're filled with this creative energy, this life, and now you want to do something. Motivation, to me, that feeling of motivation really comes from movement. So when we're moving forward, so a lot of times, to me, I think of motivation as that feeling of like when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you feel that feeling that feels good of accomplishment, right? Like, if you went in and you dieted the whole day, you lifted weights, you spent time with your family, quality time with them, you live the life. Like, I'm speaking for myself because this is like my
Mhm.
like I'm speaking my sort of dream existence, right?
Your
Lifted weights,
interpretation. Yeah.
did jujitsu. I spent quality time with my family.
Yeah.
Like read some good books that day. That's a good day for me. If I did my creative work, if I did that, then to me that's a good day. I'm so motivated by that because I'm making forward progress. I'm moving forward, and to me, motivation comes from movement. So like you don't get motivation. That's the inspiration. And inspiration is like it's a spark.
Mhm.
Motivation is like what you do after the spark. Can you fan the flame? Can you get up and keep going? And so for me, a motivation a lot of times comes afterwards, and you kind of manufacture it, right? Because the more good work you do, the more progress you feel like you're making, the more motivated you become because you're like a ball and roll and stays in motion, right? You feel like you have momentum behind you, and that's a motivating thing. Like for instance, if you're trying to lose
Do you
weight,
see that? I
would you
wrote
put
momentum. Momentum before you said it.
momentum? So
God
if
damn
you
it.
we're we're having
Hey,
like
I
a
took some grapple science before the episode. Maybe it's the grapple science. I can
maybe
read
that's
your
what it
mind.
is. But it's like you have this momentum behind you, and anybody that's dieted, all of a sudden you see the scale drop a little bit. Oh man, you get motivated. Right now, I'm in the process of bulking, and I'm up about like 6 pounds from where I started. I'm motivated by that. I'm like, oh sweet, I'm making progress. Sometimes when you're doing a jujitsu technique and you're trying to hit it, you can't hit it, and then one day you come in, you hit it, boom, it works. Hell yeah, I feel motivated by that. And that sort of
Mhm.
spurs you on. And so that's how I look at those two words, right? And you look
Mhm.
at the etymology of them. I think motivation is what we create when we move and we do something and we have forward intent with our existence, our life, our training, whatever it is that you're chasing.
Yeah, maybe we're talking about the same thing. Where maybe I'm using a different term. Like I
No,
was thinking more.
we're using the same word
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
else. Just most people, I think about the word motivation is sort of as what I like. Again, that's what I'm saying. I kind of use them a little differently
Sure.
because of where the words come from. But I think generally people do mean like motivation as like I'm
Yeah.
excited to do
Yeah.
something. Whereas I think of that as inspiration. I think as motivation is
Yeah.
kind of like you're excited after you've started doing something.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I think both of those things will lead to hopefully momentum, and like momentum, just that snowball effect that like
Yeah.
you see a technique take off or work for you, and then you're like, oh, where else can this take me? I've had some excitement about this thing. So, yeah, I think they lead to, if you can use these things to build momentum towards what you're trying to accomplish. I want to go back, Chewy, and talk about the unremarkable ideas. When you have white belts come in that maybe, yeah, and I do want to talk about the remarkable things. When is it a time to like try to find or seek out or
Yeah.
create remarkable ideas and techniques and whatever it is? But like, what's some advice for white belts or beginners that like you um to found to kind of consistently do the unremarkable things?
So kind of going back to the idea I shared about the drops in the bucket. I was talking to one of the guys about this the other day, right? When you come in, especially early on in the first few years of training, right? You're going to have some good days and you're going to have some rough days. I'm not going to say bad days because there are no bad days spent training, but you're going to have some rough days. You're going to have some days where, again, you're the nail, and, you're getting hammered. You're going to have those days where you feel off. You're going to have those days where you don't feel like you're moving forward. You even sometimes feel like you're going backwards in progress. All that stuff happens.
Yep.
You're going to have those days where you feel like, what? Why am I even doing this? Insert whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the thing is, and again, if you've ever gotten good at something, then everybody goes through this. This is the same process that everybody goes through. I talk to friends that are musicians. I've talked to friends who have made very large businesses. I've talked to friends that are like professional bodybuilders, right? It's all the same. And like when I like in wrestling, I remember the first time I experienced this was wrestling. I remember wrestling and like not being very good at it. I liked doing it. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't really good at it. But I did it because I enjoyed being on the mats and I was getting in better shape. That was cool. But I just kind of like being there. And then it was like what is it? Almost 3 years into it. All of a sudden, like I got better. And I can't
Mhm.
explain to you what happened. All of a sudden, I just got better. And I remember our coach was talking to us. He told me about this. I remember hearing about this idea when I first started. He was like, "You're going to have this aha moment. You're going to have this moment where the light bulb goes
Mhm.
off and things just seem to work, and you can't quite explain it." And I remember, like being like first year, second year wrestler. I'm like, "Where the hell's this light bulb moment coming?" I mean, I would win some matches, I would lose most of them. I wasn't great. And then my senior year, man, I got a lot better. I had a great record my senior year and did pretty well for myself. And so then it was like it unlocked this sort of idea like, oh, so like when I want to get better at something, I just have to find something that I enjoy doing and I have to be willing to grind and engage in these really boring, monotonous activities. And just do that for a nice long time. And then all of a sudden, boom, things happen. If any of you guys listening ever played video games, right? What do you do in a video game a lot of times? Let's say if you're playing an RPG, right? Like a role playing game, you have to go out and like they literally call it grinding, right? You'll take your character out and you'll just go and beat bad guys up over and over and over again, kill the enemy, and eventually you get a level up, right?
Mhm.
Now you can do it for a video game. Why wouldn't you do it for your own life? Right? Like you know what you're supposed to be doing. You don't have like a little meter over top of you telling what your experience points are.
Mhm.
But nothing bad's going to come from getting and going to the gym and training, putting in your time, going to class, drinking lots of water, trying to diet, going to the gym and lifting weights, going for a run, going for a walk, whatever it is that you're trying to do. There's nothing bad that's going to come from that if you do that consistently, right? So like, why would you not do it for your life?
Yep.
And so, for me, once you sort of break that seal and you realize like to get good at something, that's kind of what it takes. Then it was just like got into jiu-jitsu and I'm like, all right, I just got to keep doing this and eventually it's going to click. I know it's going to. And I guess having that certainty helps. if you know that this is how the process works, right? YouTube was kind of the same way. I'll just use as an example. Many of you guys know me from YouTube originally. Well, when I got into YouTube, I didn't have anybody following me. Well, how did I do it? I wasn't even really good at the videos I was doing. You can go back and watch the old ones, and I wasn't a very good polished speaker back then. I knew what I was doing technically, but I wasn't as good of a speaker back then. So what do?
Mhm.
Put your damn reps in. Grind. You just do it. You know what I mean?
Do it.
And that's what you do. And again, I don't even care with a lot of those videos. I always told myself, I don't care how they perform because I'm just trying to do this and I'm trying to get better at them. And some of them are going to bomb, some of them are going to do okay, and that's
Yep.
fine. And so for any of you guys that are training, if you have those moments of struggle with the unremarkable, well, you just remind yourself that this is kind of what we all have to go through. And if you want to get good at this stuff, this is what it requires. You have to go through this process, and to be good at anything, there's really no way around it. And then to again go back to what we were talking about earlier, try to find something out of that experience that you really enjoy, because I'm sure there's something that you enjoy about your training environment, your gym, your friends, the exercise, fitness, whatever it is. Find something you enjoy out of that, and no matter what happens, you can always leave with the idea that you put a drop in the bucket, and eventually that bucket's going to be filled, but it's going to take a little while, and you still had some good things come from it because of all the experiences, right?
Mhm.
But kind of going back to your idea with white belts, it's not just like a white belt thing. You can go to higher belts. Higher belts are notoriously lazy in the gym. Like you go to gyms and like, I you'll see where like the higher belts will a lot of times like be drilling a technique that they've already done. And they're like, I've done this for a few reps. I'm good. I just want to roll now, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And you think like, as an example, can you do that to both sides? Like, can you take that technique? Can you do it equally as well to both sides? Most people can't. Well, hey, right there's like a low hanging fruit. You can literally take this technique that you already have, and you can double your ability with it by going to the other side. And it's an incredibly useful thing. So, like, if your coach goes over a technique you've already seen, well, do it to the other side instead of being like bored to tears. Oh, I hate this. This is so boring. Do it to both sides. This way you can practice both sides, because if you can attack from both sides of your jiu-jitsu, then that unremarkable idea of just taking a technique that you've already known and just doing it again, just doing it to another side, becomes a remarkable ability to attack people to both sides of their body. Think about this. Think about how cool it would be to have the ability to take all of your best techniques and be able to do them to your left and right side, and how much more dangerous you would be as a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Mhm.
Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to practice it to both sides. Very simple idea, unremarkable idea, but leads to remarkable results, right?
Mhm. Yep. All right, so let's kind of go to the remarkable. So when do you think it's a good idea to start to chase some of these more novel, more unique concepts, maybe unique techniques, or even
Mhm.
develop your own, or even like you see a YouTube video or a reel or whatever of a
Yeah.
really cool technique. You're like, what is this thing? This looks interesting. This looks very unique. I want to dive more into that. When do you think is a good time to do that? And is it ever a good time, really?
I mean, there's no right time, I just think of it as like an
Is
80
there a
20 rule.
certain Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because like, 80-20 rule, right? Like, so, and I probably would say closer to like 90-10, like, when you think about really creating something new, or really, none of us are creating anything brand new. We're really basically just remixing. Even if you think of like the iPhone really wasn't a new invention. The iPhone was basically taking an iPod and a telephone that was a cellular phone and just mixing them together. That was like, basically, he even said, we're just going to take these two things and combine them.
Yeah.
He remixed. He took things that already existed and he made something new. I think there was a quote. It was basically, genius is simply taking things that already exist and combining them together, and so it wasn't new. Changed the world, but wasn't new. And even the technology that he used to create the iPod Touch, he bought from another company that already existed. And he's like, I want to make an MP3 player, which already existed. And they just combined them. MP3 players were just an iteration of CD players. I mean, so you can go down the list, and we just kind of remix and play around with things as time goes on. So none of us are really making something brand new. It's more a remixing or slightly adjusting. But as far as like when you come to that road where you're ready to like charge out there and like, I'm going to do something brand new, I think you need to have your ducks in a row, and you need to really have a good foundation to be able to really place the your ideas on some foundation of actual like experience and results, right? So You see this a lot in the internet world where it's just rife with people that instead of actually producing results for themselves or anybody else, they just want to jump to the front of the line and say, hey, look at me, I've got this really cool new idea. This is going to solve all the problems, or this is what you should be doing, whatever. I was looking at some guy a while ago who like does, I guess, like strength training for jiu-jitsu, and it was like all these crazy asinine exercises. And, you look at this guy and I'm like, no offense to him, but like not the most physically imposing fella. And I don't know whose results he's making, but I don't see anybody else for him. Right. On the other hand, then there's like, my coach who's, not necessarily focused on jiu-jitsu people per se, but he's helped me he got me a bunch of results, and he's helped a ton of people get results, like whether they're jiu-jitsu or not. And he has a booklet of just like, look at all these people that I've helped. So like, you know what I mean? Again, I think that he has his own methods and he did the work first, so that now that he wants to create his own style, his own methods, he has a lot of experience to do so. You're kind of the same way with your physical therapy. You can have your own methods and things that you can tweak because you've done so much work with them. With my jiu-jitsu, I've spent 24 years on the mat. If I want to remix and make things a little bit different and new, I can do that because I have a deep well of knowledge. Now, as far as like the focusing on like novelty and techniques, I mean, you can do that at any time you want. Just understand that like there's a reason why the fundamentals are the fundamentals. And there's a reason why you can watch even the best guys roll and you will see really basic stuff being used because it works. Now, they will also have a level of depth there that, will then lead into all kinds of crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, you'll still see them use a lot of basic stuff, whether you notice it or not, because sometimes the transitions happen so fast in a very high level match that sometimes it's hard to notice like the really simple things that they're doing, but you see it over and over again. So again, I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong time. My call is basically just to not chase novelty as if it's going to be your main solution, but to chase novelty as like, oh, that looks like fun, right? So like going to diet for a second, every meal throughout the week, which sounds boring to most people. I like it because I can turn my brain off and I don't have to think. But I eat the same foods every single day, like almost without fail. Same food every single day.
Me too.
I don't mind it. I change the spices up a little bit. Sometimes I'll mix up condiments, things like that, but essentially the same food. I'll add some different veggies in there from time to time. But one meal out of the week, I will eat whatever I want. Right now, I keep it within reason. I'm not going to go like, hey, I'm going to eat a pizza plus fried chicken and whatever. I'm going to eat a reasonable meal, but I eat whatever I want. And that meal is like the novelty, right? It gives me a little bit of novelty through the week. What am I going to eat this week? I get it planned out. I'll talk to Jess, like, what are we going to eat this week? I want to go eat something real like good, and we'll go pick out a meal to enjoy. And I'll typically have like a glass of tequila or bourbon with it, right? So that's my fun. That's my novelty. But the other bulk of it is like the straightforward stuff. And so it's the same way with like, I think jiu-jitsu and everything else, right? Like the bulk of your training is focused on like, the straightforward stuff, but you can still have a little fun with it. You can still say, hey, I want to throw something else in there. Let me have a cheat technique, like let me throw that in there. And so, that's my opinion on it. And that's been my experience, but I think it's more often than not pretty useful to go by.
Yeah, I think that you've gotten a formula, and most of us that have trained or done anything for a long time, they know that there's a formula that works, and you just have to follow that formula. Like Eli, or the guy that does the diets and the exercise stuff, like he's got a formula. He's like, all right, this is the amount of this type of foods you need to eat to get the results that you need. I've got a formula based on what your goals are and where you're at right now. This is what you need to do, and just be consistent with it. And the other thing, about the novelty with the food, man, how much do you enjoy when you're eating like a consistent diet? How much do you enjoy that novelty meal? If you have novelty meals all the time, they're not novelty anymore. Like you're eating all these like, I'm eating sushi and then I'm eating fried shit, whatever it is, whatever you enjoy. But then like if you don't do that, and like, man, you look forward to it all week. Whoa, you really enjoy it. So you find a lot of it's really like something. It becomes even more of I don't know, like a treat in some ways. And I think that's also it's something you appreciate more.
Well, sure. Well, even think about it this way. Okay. Like most people have a way that they would like to look, right? Most of us have a desired way we'd want to look. Maybe we want to be bigger. Maybe we'd like to be less chunky or whatever, right? Like that's just a thing. Okay. Well, if you are, let's say that you're overweight and you don't like that you're overweight and you keep eating food that you know you shouldn't be eating,
Mhm.
can you really even enjoy it? Like you're just eating it over and over again, but you're not even like it's not helping you become the person you want to be. So do you really enjoy it that much? Or are you just like, I can't stop? You
Yeah,
know?
well, the
Yeah.
the problem is with it is that, like, you almost have this terrible relationship with food because, like, you get mad at yourself. Like, if you're, like, eating the foods, you're like, it's not good for you. Like, I'm gonna eat McDonald's, and then, like, afterwards, you're like, "Man, I'm so mad at myself for it's just like you have this negative thing around food, and it shouldn't be that. So I think you
Right.
create these correlations that are unhealthy as well.
Well, and so again, going back to it, like you're upset with yourself because you're not becoming who you want to be. You're not doing what you want to be. You're basically addicted to mouth pleasure. It sucks. It's
Mhm.
not fun,
Yeah.
right? And like the companies a lot of times engineer the foods to be that way, but you can prevent it. Now, think about it this way. Let's say that you do look closer to the person that you want to be. You're a little bit bigger, a little bit more in shape. You can see abdominal muscles, whatever it is, and that what you do. You engage. You choose to on Friday night. You were like, man, I really want McDonald's, so you go get like whatever meal you want and you eat the food and you enjoy every last drop of it or every last morsel of it because it had its rightful place, right? It's like the food's not in control, you're in control, you decided to eat it, and after you're done eating that food, you still have six-pack abs or you still have, the body that you want, and you can really enjoy it rather than if you're eating McDonald's every day and it doesn't have any novelty to you and it's not and it's not helping you become the person you want to be, right?
Mhm.
And so, again, just as an idea there, I think that you can enjoy those like novel ideas or those different things that pop up with training when you're doing all the fundamental stuff. Because for instance, let's say that, with your jiu-jitsu, if you've got a strong foundation and you decide to go off the beaten path and try some really funky new stuff, you're probably going to have a lot more success with it and be able to explore it to a much greater degree because of the base that you've formed over the years.
Mhm.
Um, in business, as an example, just, I have some experience there. You can, if you have a really strong fundamental base, your business is strong fundamentally, you can play around with a lot of different stuff and you can do lots of different new ideas and all that stuff. And if it works, it'll work better. And if it doesn't work, it won't hurt you too bad because of the base that you have. But if you're not built on a fundamental base, things can get hairy really fast if you're not
Yep.
doing things that are working, right?
Mhm.
And so I think of it that way, right? Like I think that you can enjoy and you can get more from the experiences when the foundation is there and you're in a place that you want to be, with your jujitsu, with your food, with whatever. And again, this is just coming from my own experience to be true, right? Like when I eat my cheat meal or my free meal, whatever it is, we typically, my coach and I would just call it an off-plan meal. Like I pick it out and I enjoy it. You know what I mean? And like
Mhm.
there's no bones about it, right? Because I'm like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, I like the person I'm becoming. And so I'm going to enjoy every little piece of food that I have here because I know that, it's in its rightful place and I feel good that I'm in control of it. When I have my glass, I have usually one drink per week, sometimes none, but usually once a week. I'll have a glass of tequila or I'll have a glass of bourbon, you know, one drink, couple ounces. That's it. And I enjoy it. Like, I know there's a lot of people who are like, alcohol is this, whatever. I'm like, I never had the desire to drink too much. And if someone has, you may have to stay away with it. For me, it doesn't do it that bad. So I can have one drink and I'm completely fine with that one drink
Yep.
per week. And it has its place. And I like that because I'm in control. Even with coffee, I'll detox off coffee usually at least once a year for about a month. And I'll drink green tea for about a month, just like one green tea a day to make sure I don't get headaches. And then when I add the coffee back in, it's like the buzz that I get from it is renewed, but also
Yeah.
for me, I'm in control of it. I'm like, I'm in control of the coffee. The drug, the stimulant is not in control of me. And so again, those are some ideas again, and maybe doesn't necessarily apply to what we're talking about, but maybe it'll be useful to someone nonetheless. All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast and hopefully you got something from it. I know we kind of bounce, as we often do, kind of bounced off and different ideas and different little corners there with it. But again, the idea, I just saw that and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Again, it's just, I think sometimes people chase something brand new opposed to like, there's really simple stuff that we all know we can do that would move the needle forward for us in a great way if we did it consistently for a long time. But yet we don't do it because it's not fun or exciting, right? So
Mhm.
stop worrying about being fun, exciting. Think about it, whether or not it's effective and has been proven to work over and over again. But big thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Grapple Science, they're one of our new sponsors. They make a product called Cognition. It's a supplement to help with energy and focus. I've been using it a little bit off and on for over a month. My wife has been using it as well. She's kind of my litmus test sometimes to see if it works for people versus works for me, because sometimes I feel like I can be a little bit more like I can will something to work in my head. She jokingly tells me that when they do those placebo tests, how like a lot of times the placebo is just as effective sometimes as the drug or the supplement.
It is?
She's like,
Yeah.
that's like you're those people. But anyway, it's a good supplement. I like it. It's got some good ingredients. It's got some B vitamins, going to give you some energy. There's also some different stuff in there. It's worth trying. There's no stimulants in it, so it's not like a pre-workout drink where you're gonna get jittery and gas out, and it's not gonna make you feel weird or loopy or anything of that nature. For me, what I noticed when I was using it was I just felt a little bit more dialed in. I noticed it probably the most when I was teaching and when I was doing my creative work, like writing and recording videos after training. Because a lot of times after training, if I train really hard, sometimes there's a bit of a lull that I'll have to
Yep.
kind of get my energy back up. And I didn't have that as much with my creative work. So worth trying out. If you guys want to give it a try, it's a relatively new supplement. You can try it at their website. You can pick it up. It's grapplescience.com. And the promo code is Chewjitsu20, CHEWJITSU 20. Also, thanks to Charlotte's Web. They are another one of our sponsors, one of our main sponsors for a long time. They've got a lot of new products out. If you guys want to check out their website, one of their new products is called Stay Asleep. It is a CBN supplement. If you want to look into CBN, which is a little bit different than CBD, you can do so. You can go search it and sort of check it out for yourself. But CBN is useful for specifically what they've noticed is it seems to be useful for sleep. So again, some of these cannabinoids can be very helpful for sleep and improving the sleep cycles people have. And so CBN seems to be a useful tool for that. And anything for me regarding sleep is always an important thing because
Mhm.
sleep is obviously for us is one of our main tools for recovery. Supplements and stuff are fine, but if you can't get good sleep, it's going to be tough to recover. And so sleeping and basically tweaking my sleep is one of the things I've gone down deep into the rabbit hole with. If you were to come into my house at night, we've got like lamps with red lights, there's blackout curtains, I've got noise stuff going on. My eyes are covered when I sleep. The house is at a very cool temperature at bedtime. I mean, like at certain points at night, we only use lamps because we turn off all the bright lights overhead. The phone goes into the corner at a certain time. I only read from a certain, I'm very disciplined about it because, one, any of you guys who have kids, you kind of have to be disciplined about sleep. You don't have a choice, right? But also too, for my recovery, if I'm going to go out and train and be energized for my students and, trying to get the most for myself, my lifting, I can't do that if I'm not resting. And so again, it's been a supplement that I've been using. I like it. If you guys want to check it out, go to charlottesweb.com. That's the website. And then the promo code is Chewjitsu30, CHEWJITSU 30. Also, guys, epicrollbjj.com. Epic Roll is one of our sponsors. They've been one of our longtime sponsors as well. I get all of my rash guards and shorts made through them, my Nogi shorts. I really like the quality of it. They've got some really cool designs, and I've got some new ones coming out for you guys in the near future if you're interested. Some really cool designs. If you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably seen the challenge that we've had going on where my students will basically ask me if they submit me, if they can get my rash guard. I, of course, oblige and then do not let them submit me so they don't get the rash guard. Haven't given one up yet. But if you guys want to check out any of their stuff, they've got rash guards, gis, shorts, t-shirts, anything and everything jiu-jitsu related. You can get it at epicrollbjj.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. If you guys want to support the podcast that you listen to directly and help keep it going and just that whole thing, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you sign up with our Patreon for a very inexpensive price, we'll give you access to an exclusive library of content that can be very useful to you. Everything from warm-up routines. Why am I having trouble saying that today? Everything from warm-up routines, warm-up routines. I don't know why I sound like a little kid. Warm-up routines.
Unique New York. Unique
New York. I can say that it was from warm-up routine. That's like a weird word for me today. All right. Hopefully I'm not having a stroke. But anyway, if you guys want to check out the website, again, everything from warm-up routines, and then we also have things like seminars that I've recorded and a lot of back-end stuff, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that you can check out there. If you're a fan of Jiu-Jitsu and the stuff that I do, you'll enjoy it. Patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, where you can check it out. Also, guys, if you want to get my daily email where I go into everything from books that I'm reading to ideas for training, diet, lifting, whatever it might be, and get access to a new ebook that I just created. So I had a old ebook back in the day called Focus Jiu-Jitsu, which I would give away. It was useful. I rewrote it because it wasn't really. First off, I wrote that book back in like 2014, but it also wasn't, I don't think, useful for a lot of people who don't have a lot of control of their training. So, a lot of people don't know how to focus and don't know how to get the most from their training during their open mats and open rolls. And so what I did was create a book, and it's got 12 different strategies where you can implement more focus into your training during your open rounds and open rolls. And the purpose for doing this is to help you get more progress, more skill from that training set, from those training sessions. For me, this book came as a byproduct of one of my students coming up to me one day, and he told me, he's like, Chewy, he goes, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt, but at the same time, like, I don't mean any offense by this. So when he says this, I'm like, what are you talking about? And he says, listen, he's like, how do you stay so good, but you don't train that much? And basically he was saying, because the reason why I said it, I mean, honestly, I usually only roll 3 days a week, maybe 4, right? Rolling, now I lift weights and everything. I only roll about 3 days a week, maybe 4. And so he looked at it as like, he's a younger guy. He's looking at this stuff like, man, these guys are training all the time, whatever. And, you're doing this and you're still able to win competitions, but you're still only training 3 to 4 days a week. And, there's a reason for that. I mean, I have a bit deep base of skill, and I do spend time lifting weights and doing other activities, which helps me. But also one of the things is that when I'm rolling, I have things that I'm focused on. And so I don't step on the mat just like, hey, I'm here, let's have fun. I mean, that's sometimes a good thing to do. If I'm just trying to blow off some steam, that's fine. But if I'm focused on getting better at something, I step on the mat and I have goals for myself. And there's ways to implement that you can do at any level, even brand new white belts. And so the ebook will help you with that. And I outline some strategies for you. It's super easy to implement. It's relatively short. So you can get that at my website, chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. And when you join up, you'll get my daily email, and then you will get the ebook for free. You can unsubscribe at any time, keep the ebook for yourself. But hopefully it helps you out. And so, guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today. And we'll talk to you next week.